turn back to Makhado and drove down. So our apologies for the late start. Fog does create darkness, and it was on the 21st of February that the ship could not see each other. The Mendi was en route from Cape Town to France. At around 5 a.m. in thick fog, it was struck by the British cargo ship SS Darrow. The collision tore a large hole in the Mendi's hull, and the ship quickly began to sink. Now, despite the chaos, the survivors, who were all from South Africa, later testified to extraordinary calm and dignity amongst the men. In total, about 646 people died, including the crew. Most of the men, as I said, were from South Africa. They were from the rural communities across our country, and some of them would have come from here in Limpopo as well. They had volunteered to serve, though they were not permitted to bear arms like our soldiers today are bearing arms. They were not permitted to bear arms because of the racial policies of the time. One of the most powerful stories associated with the tragedy involves Reverend Isaac Wokop Jopa, who reportedly urged the men to remain calm as the ship was sinking. He said they must remain calm and face death with dignity. According to survivor accounts, the men performed what they called a final death drill, stamping their feet and chanting as the ship went down, symbolizing courage and unity. The symbolism of disciplined bravery has become central to the legacy of the Mendi. That is the symbolism that we today have in our defense force, in our soldiers, those who serve in the army, who serve in the Navy, who serve in the Air Force, and who serve in the medical corps. What we see is absolute discipline and courage, like the courage that was displayed by those 646 men who sang and remained calm even in the face of death, as they knew that they were going to die. They sang and they were encouraged by Reverend Wokop. The sinking reflects the contradictions of the time. Black South Africans volunteered to support the British war effort. They were denied combat roles. In other words, they were denied to bear arms and to go into war. And they were denied equal military status. After the war, they received little recognition compared to white soldiers who came from our country. Some of them were given bicycles. White soldiers were given farms. that led to the great divide between black and white in our country. The tragedy became a powerful symbol of sacrifice without citizenship, loyalty without equality, courage in the face of structural injustice. For a country like South Africa, which is still grappling with historical memory and social cohesion, the Mendi stands as a key moral landmark, a historical monument. And that is why we celebrate and commemorate this day. The men are commemorated at the Delville Wood Memorial in France and through various memorials in South Africa. I did go to the Delville Memorial some years ago to commemorate the men who died in the SS Mendi. Now we need to ask ourselves, why does the SS Mendi matter? For South Africa's broader story of nationhood, it talks about what we define as heroism. It talks about African contributions to the global history. It symbolizes dignity even under oppression. And given the opposition by some in our country to commemorate this day, we need to ask ourselves, how does a society or a nation properly recognize sacrifice when recognition was historically denied? Many other countries in the world commemorate the passing of their soldiers, because soldiers are the only people in the whole nation who are prepared to lay down their lives in defense of the nation, in defense of our democracy and constitution. They take an oath that they are prepared to die so that all of us can live. We therefore need to pay respect and recognition to those men and women who separate themselves from us and say, we are prepared to die so that all of you can live. The tragedy of SS Mendi reminds us of the importance of unity and solidarity, that despite great peril and danger, those brave soldiers stood together as they faced their fate, a fate that they knew, the fate of immediate death. Their courage and spirit continues to inspire today, and it continues to inspire the men and women in uniform that we see amongst us today. As they will march past here, as we look at them, we must look at them with respect and know that these men and women don't just wear the uniform to look pretty or beautiful. They wear the uniform as a badge of loyalty, a badge of solidarity with all of us. They have elevated themselves above all of us. Armed Forces Day honors all our soldiers who paid the ultimate sacrifice while serving the Republic outside our borders and in internal operations. This day is a tribute to the courage of those who wear uniform, and we bow our heads in memory of those who never returned from that dangerous horizon. We extend our deepest sympathies to the families and comrades of those who made the ultimate sacrifice. There is no better sacrifice that anyone can make than to lay down one's life for other people. To those who continue to serve, your sacrifices, your bravery and commitment are deeply valued by all of us, a grateful nation. We are all aware of the recent heavy rains, the devastating floods, the loss of life and the damage to infrastructure in this province and not far away from where we are, and in Mpumalanga and beyond as well, and in KZN and in some parts of the Free State. The South African National Defence Force brought its expertise to assist in the relief efforts and operations, working together with local and provincial authorities, deploying engineers to support disaster management, to repair roads and bridges, to purify water and erect temporary structures for those who were affected. The Premier of this province and other premiers were leading from the front and led to a point of even going to the doors of Treasury to get the necessary funding for reconstruction and to bring relief to our people. This recovery effort extended also to our neighboring country, Mozambique, where the SANDF rescued citizens from raging floodwaters. I extend a special word of thanks, yes, to our premiers, provincial agencies, and local authorities who have been on the ground in Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and Mozambique since the start of the devastation. As a demonstration of its developmental capabilities, the SANDF has been active in communities in this province as part of Armed Forces Day program. During this period, leading up to this day, the South African Military Health Services project called Owethu provided health services to rural communities in Sekhukhune, in Waterberg, and in the Bembe district. These services have covered medical care, mental health, ophthalmology, oral health, and more than 85 cataract procedures were conducted at Elim Hospital, not far from here, restoring sight to many elderly patients. As a person who had a cataract procedure and can now see very clearly without spectacles, I can testify to the very good work that the South African Medical Services Corps is doing. Furthermore, the SANDF has given itself time to visit schools to instill the values of patriotism, sharing with learners the importance of national symbols, the national anthem, and nationhood, and explaining to them the code of arms and what our code of arms means in the nation-building process. There is also a special program to introduce the SANDF to young people and the general public, showcasing the exciting careers available in the Defense Force. Our Defense Force has a lot of training and logistical careers, and they are a disciplined force that is able to inculcate discipline amongst young people. It is a real-time simulation of the South African National Defense Force's ability to mobilize personnel and equipment across the country, modeling various threat scenarios in defense of our territorial integrity as South Africa. We began as a day of mourning, but this has evolved into a display of military capability and national pride. To our men and women in uniform, each one of you has picked up the spear of our fallen heroes and heroines. You are the shield that ensures that our people know lasting peace, security, and stability. You stand on the shoulders of giants and giant warriors like King Makado, the Lion of the North, and King Thohoyandou, whose leadership shaped our destiny, and of the soldiers who refused to betray the cause of freedom at the Battle of Mutare River. You stand with giants like King Shaka, Kachwayo, many others who stood firm in defense of our nation. Their legacy is mirrored in the resolve of the modern South African Defense Force. The members of the SANDF serve in an era of great geopolitical tension. Our country remains steadfast in our policy of non-alignment. We refuse to be drawn into the spheres of influence of competing global powers. We assert our strategic autonomy and sovereignty as a nation, and we conduct all our operations under the strict civilian oversight and in absolute adherence to international humanitarian law. We are called upon to adapt to new realities. There has been a shift on the battlefield from traditional weaponry to high-tech, autonomous and unmanned systems such as drones, digital warfare, and the use of artificial intelligence. These changes require a South African National Defense Force that is responsive, relevant, and agile. Our military is having to adapt at a time when public resources are constrained. Given the critical importance of the SANDF to our security, our sovereignty, and development, additional resources have been allocated from the budget, and we will continue to allocate the necessary and more resources to equip the South African National Defense Force so that it is able to execute its task to defend the people of South Africa. Now, this is a targeted intervention to close the funding gaps. We do concede that over the years, the funding for the SANDF has been tapering down, and we've been seeking to close the gap in other areas. And now it can no longer continue. We must now reposition our South African National Defence Force to make it stronger so that it is well equipped. We want to improve efficiencies and ensure operational ambitions are matched by our resources. Now, having assessed our current priorities, I have decided to draw down our participation as a troop contributing country in the United Nations Stabilization Mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, known as MINUSCO. This will be done in a phased and well-orchestrated manner to ensure the safe return of our troops and their equipment. As we withdraw from that theater, we pledge our continued support to our continent. Our continental peace and security initiatives under the United Nations, under the African Union, and under SADC. We are also mindful of the internal threats to security and the safety of our people. I have authorized the deployment of the SANDF elements to support the South African Police Service in a targeted offensive against brazen criminality, illegal mining, and the ruthless gangs that continue to wreak havoc amongst our communities. From the Cape Flats to Gauteng, our message is clear. The rule of law will be enforced and the safety of our citizens will be ensured. Even in the Eastern Cape, in the northern areas, we will make sure that we root out the gangs. We will make sure that we root out those who have sought to capture our police and weaken it. This deployment is a shield for the vulnerable, so that a child in Nyanga, in El Dorado Park, or New Brighton, or in the northern areas in Port Elizabeth, can walk to school without the shadow of it haunting their steps. Young people present here today and watching across the country, I invite you to see the South African need your capabilities. Your country needs you. It needs you in engineering, in medicine, in technology, in strategy, and many other disciplines. Join the South African National Defence Force for the love of your country. By serving your people, you build your own future and you contribute to a better nation. To our soldiers, continue to fly our flag high on all missions. Continue to guard and to build the bridges that connect our communities. You have become known as the best bridge builders in the nation. As you go around the country, people know that the South African National Defence Force does not only wear uniform, it wears overalls to build bridges, and we thank you for that. You remind us that through our collective resolve as a nation, we are able to rise above any challenge that we might face. May the memory of SS Mendy and all those who served our country inspire us to work towards a brighter future for South Africa and her people. And to all members of our forces, ndialibuwa ndikolibuwa ngamanda ka mushumo une waitiwa na udinekedzela na ndila ino ni yavudi roda pano Thohoyandou rikusumbedza uri masole ashu ana bukoni akotosumbedza bathu bothe uri badoritsireledza badoritikedza nga tshifhinga tshoṱhe. Namusi bathu bangeno Thohoyandou na vhaṅwe vhanzhi vho zwi vhona kha TV na zwino ri ḓo vha vhona vha tshi khou matsha hafhanoni. Ri ḓo vhona uri ngongo ndi masole a vhukoni. Zwine zwa tou ntakadza na u fhira ndi u vhona havha vha vhafumakadzi havha vha vhasidzana vha tshi ḓo fhira henefha vho fara zwigidi zwihulu vha tshi khou sumbedza uri naho ha itea mini vhone vho ḓinekedza uri vha ḓo ri tsireledza. A huna tshine tsha nga takadza muthu u fana na u tsireledzwa nga muthu wa mufumakadzi o fara tshigidi. Ndi zwithu zwavhuḓi nga maanḓa. Ndi munna muṅwe na muṅwe hafhanoni a songo vhuya delela vhafumakadzi vhane vha vha kha South African National Defence Force. Nahone arali wa vhuya wa imisa tshanḓa wa dia mufumakadzi ane a vha kha SANDF, u ḓo vhaisa nga maanḓa. U ḓo vhaisa nga maanḓa. Ndi na mpama ya hone i ḓo vhea fhasi. Ri a livhuwa vhathu vho ḓa nga ḓala nga u rali. Namusi ndi ḓuvha ḽavhuḓi ngeno Thohoyandou, ngeno Vhembe. Ri livhuwe muprimiya washu na dzimeya dzashu na vho Thovhela vhane vha vha hone uri vho ri tendela uri ri dzhene hafhanoni muvhunduni wavho ri ḓo ita hoyu mushumo wavhuḓi wa u takadza. Ndaa.